You light a candle at dinner and you don't think about why. You gather around a fire pit with friends and the conversation just flows easier. Something about the flame pulls your chair a little closer, lowers your voice a little softer. You've done this 1,000 times. But the real answer for why is far stranger than ambiance. Your attraction to fire isn't a habit. It isn't a mood. It's a memory your body carries from over 1,000,000 years ago, long before language, long before agriculture, long before anything you'd recognize as human civilization. Fire didn't just warm your ancestors. It rebuilt them. It shrank their guts, grew their brains, rewired their sleep, and taught them how to sit still and listen to one another in the dark. You are, in a very real sense, a byproduct of a campfire. Start with the body. Around 1.9 to 1.8 million years ago, a new species appeared in the fossil record, Homo erectus. Compared to earlier hominins, something strange had happened. Brains got dramatically bigger, guts got dramatically smaller, teeth and jaws shrank, bodies grew taller and leaner. What could cause all four of those changes at once? The primatologist Richard Wrangham has spent decades arguing for one answer: cooking. Wrangham's cooking hypothesis proposes that once early humans began systematically cooking food, everything downstream of digestion changed. Raw food takes enormous energy to break down. Chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, spend nearly half of their waking day just chewing. Cooking does that work externally. Heat breaks down tough plant fibers and denatures proteins before a single bite reaches your mouth. The stomach and intestines no longer needed to be massive fermentation vats. They could shrink, and the energy that used to go toward digesting raw food could be redirected somewhere else entirely. Your brain is metabolically brutal. It's about 2% of your body weight, but it burns roughly 20% of your daily calories. That kind of organ doesn't evolve for free. Something has to pay for it. Wrangham's argument is that cooked food paid the bill. Once digestion got cheaper, biology could afford a bigger brain. Fire, in this telling, isn't a convenience early humans added to their lives. It's the reason their lives could support a mind like yours at all. But when did this actually start? That's where the evidence gets harder to pin down and where the story gets even stranger. For a long time, controlled fire use was hard to prove. Ash looks like ash whether it comes from a campfire or a wildfire. But in 2012, archaeologist Francesco Berna and his colleagues published findings from Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, deep enough underground that lightning-sparked wildfires simply couldn't reach it. Inside, they found burned bone fragments and ashed plant remains dated to roughly 1,000,000 years ago. This wasn't fire that wandered in. This was fire that was carried in, tended, and used inside a cave, on purpose. 1,000,000 years of your ancestors sitting inside a small circle of light in the dark together. Think about what that actually requires. You don't stumble into that. You have to protect a flame from rain. You have to feed it fuel before it dies. You have to agree as a group that someone stays awake to watch it. That's not just technology. That's teamwork. That's trust. And once you have a fire that has to be watched, you have something else humans didn't have before, a reason to stay in one place, awake, after dark, doing nothing but watching a flame and each other. What do you think that does to a species that evolved almost entirely around avoiding the dark? For nearly the entire history of life on Earth, night was danger. It was when predators saw better than you did. It was when the safest move was to hide and stay silent. Fire flipped that rule. For the first time, darkness could be pushed back. Predators could be kept at a distance, and your ancestors, instead of huddling in silence, could do something almost nobody else on the planet was doing after sunset. They could talk. The anthropologist Polly Wiessner studied this directly, not in the fossil record, but in a living population that still spends much of its life without electric light, the Yuhuansi people of the Kalahari. Wiessner recorded and compared daytime conversations to nighttime, firelit conversations across the community. The difference was striking. Daytime talk was practical, complaints, gossip, economic negotiation, arguments over resources. But fire-lit conversation transformed. It shifted towards storytelling, toward myth, memory, humor, and connection. The stories exchanged around the fire built shared history and social bonds in a way daytime talk simply didn't. Here's the twist most people never connect. The fire didn't just let humans see in the dark. It changed what they talked about once they could. Daylight is full of tasks. There's food to find, tools to make, disputes to settle. But firelight, oddly, strips a lot of that away. You can't farm in the dark. You can't hunt in the dark. What's left, once the practical work of the day is done, is each other. Fire created the first reliable, recurring window in human history where a group's only job was to sit together and pay attention to one another's voices. Some researchers argue this window is where oral tradition itself was born. Not around a task, around a flame with nothing else to do. There's a physiological layer to this too. Firelight sits in a very narrow, warm part of the light spectrum, heavy in reds and oranges, low in blue. Your eyes evolved long before electric light existed, and your internal clock still responds to that same narrow band. Blue-heavy daylight tells your brain to stay alert. Warm, dim, flickering light does almost the opposite. It nudges your body toward melatonin production, toward winding down, toward rest, which means firelight wasn't only a social signal. It was, quite literally, a biological off switch for the day. So by the time your ancestors were sitting around that flame in Wonderwerk Cave, 3 things were happening at once. Their bodies were shutting down the daytime stress response. Their guts, freed from digesting raw food, had already grown smaller, and their now larger brains had, for the first time in the day, nothing urgent to do except listen to another human voice in the dark. Does that sound familiar? It should, because you still do this. You still gather around fire pits on cool nights and feel the conversation shift toward something more personal than it was an hour earlier. You still find yourself staring, half hypnotized, into a flame with no clear thought at all, just watching it move. Psychologists have even measured this, finding that simply watching a fire lowers blood pressure the longer people sit with it, even without any social interaction at all. Your body doesn't know the difference between a fire that kept a predator away 1,000,000 years ago and a fire crackling in a backyard pit tonight. As far as your nervous system is concerned, it's the same signal. Safety, rest, time to talk. Screens have tried to replace this. They fail. A screen is bright, blue-heavy, and demands your eyes track fast-moving information. It puts your nervous system on alert instead of winding it down. A fire does the opposite. It asks nothing of you except presence, and that might be exactly why, even now, surrounded by every technology imaginable, people still drive out to sit in a circle around burning wood and call it relaxing. You weren't taught to love fire. You inherited it from a lineage of ancestors who survived because someone learned to keep the flame alive through the night, who grew brains big enough to imagine you because that fire freed up the energy to build them, and who discovered, purely by accident, that a circle of warm light was the first place humans ever learned to really talk to one another. So the next time you light a candle at dinner without thinking about why, or find your voice getting quieter and warmer around a bonfire with friends, know that you're not creating a mood. You're stepping into the oldest room humans ever built. And the real answer for why you still can't look away from a flame isn't ambiance at all. It's 1,000,000 years of memory, quietly asking you to sit down, stay a while, and talk.